G'day everyone, it's Michelle J. Raymond back again with another episode. And this week, listeners, I'm excited because we have a fabulous guest who comes with 20 years plus of B2B marketing experience. And she's going to share the ways that you can get some quick wins. Moni Aluwerde, thank you so much for joining us.
So happy to be here, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
When I came across, first of all, your Substack newsletter, which I will be dropping any of the details so people can reach out and connect with you directly on LinkedIn or Substack or all of the cool resources that you've got, the thing that kept popping up was that you are passionate about getting back to good marketing, which is marketing fundamentals. Okay, Moni, we're going to go straight between the eyes because my first question that I have for you, and it comes up when I'm talking to my clients, is that I'm confused. Is marketing to serve stakeholders or am I old-fashioned in thinking it's for customers?
When you peel back the layers and really look at it, you're really serving stakeholders, honestly. You're serving executives, you're serving board members. That's what those metrics are about. That's what all those numbers are about because your customers don't care about those things. So you're serving board members.
I know that that's what's going on because when people reach out to me, the first thing that they say is, we need help insert, let's say, getting more company page followers because our chairman, our CEO, our someone else from outside of that particular department has seen that we've got less followers than our competitors. And so the strategy then bends around, somebody else said this. But honestly, where should we be focusing and what's one proactive thing that we can do to take this back into control and serve our customers?
It's so classic. And I sympathize with the practitioner, the people who are on the ground, because I'm sure they've had this conversation 1,000 times internally of why are we doing this? Why can't we just do that? Are you sure this is the way? We've all tried to steer the ship in a different direction to no avail. So the advice that I give my clients and to the business owners that I talk to is let's focus on kind of getting customer research. Let's focus on validating that this is the right direction to go. One of the things that you can do is start with the good old form, right? So for example, on a form we say first name, last name, company, title. That's all kind of wasted space. We have a bunch of data providers out there that can pin all that data for you. Instead, let's ask the essentials, email, first name, last name, and then let's use that space to qualify or validate why they're taking the action. So if you have a white paper, for example, let's ask, are you downloading this white paper because you're dealing with X problem, Y problem, or Z problem? Or are you downloading this paper because you're trying to solve X problem, Y problem, or Z problem? If you have that kind of qualitative information, you can inform the next step, or you can then say, hey guys, let's create this type of content because the problem is really the Z problem, right? It's validating information.
Yeah, and it's actually using analytics to solve a problem that you are actually looking into, not reverse engineering. And I'm not going to go into analytics just yet because I'm going to save that for later on because there is something that I think is even more important for our listeners to understand, that we need to be measuring the right things and getting back to marketing fundamentals. There's something else that came up in your content that I found myself nodding away to, and that was all about the power of niches or niches, depending where you are in the world. I'm on team niche, so we're going to stay there. But I think one of the issues that I have found is that when clients are talking about, I know my niche, they're business owners, it's just not going to do it for them. When do you see this, and what's a better alternative that can help people really get those wins when it comes to their marketing on LinkedIn?
Michelle, I see it all of the time. Okay, I deal from small business owners, startups to enterprise level companies. Everybody's scared to niche down. And their biggest fear is that they're going to alienate or lose customers, right? That's always the fear. Actually, the opposite is true, right? Because if you're talking to everyone, you're talking to no one. That's the benefit of niching down. You have to. And the biggest companies do. I always give the example of, let's say, Apple, right? You think Apple is oh my God, their customer base, everybody has an iPhone, they talk to everyone. They really don't. They have a very particular audience that they speak to. They speak to predominantly males, predominantly in that sort of mid 20 to early 40s, late 30s kind of demographic, very educated, tech savvy. Like you see it at the conferences, you see it on kind of the online, that's an archetype of a person, is very niche. Those people are their evangelists and they tell everybody else about the phone, right? That's how marketing really works. You find your niche audience, you evangelize those people to tell everyone else around you. It's called word of mouth, the most powerful piece of marketing that we actually have. Niching down is your best benefit because that's how you speak directly to the pain point and the desired outcome.
Look, I hear you. I have this podcast and I have another one called the LinkedIn Branding Show where we often talk about niching. But I have a confession, Moni, and I think you're the right person to share it with. I know this stuff. I hear this stuff from other people and I nod my head and I agree with them. But when it came to my own marketing, when I just reviewed my website over the holiday break, I had to rock in the corner and say, I'm not taking my own medicine. People in the world know me for all things LinkedIn company pages. That is my area of expertise. That is the thing that they come to me. Do you think if you found my website that you would even really see the word company pages mentioned? No. I decided that it would be great to just be the LinkedIn person when it came to my website. So I get it because I've been there and done that myself,
For sure.
even though I know better. So this is definitely not hating on any of the marketers out there because I think it's scary because your brain says, no, Moni, if I cut off all of this market, I'm going to lose sales, as opposed to if you narrow in, you're going to win more. Like it's just so against what your brain tells you.
Counterintuitive, absolutely 1,000%. I think the reason why is because a lot of people don't understand that the marketing is in the message, right? And the message has to resonate and connect. And the best way that you can do that is get as specific as you can about your audience. The way that I go about it with my customers and the people that I coach is like, let's use descriptive words. Don't get away from demographics, right? Use more descriptive words. Passionate, excited, frustrated, and like let's go into what the issue is deeper from a psychological standpoint, and then that's how we kind of use that language to speak to those types of people, and then we can go further and further and further and further because it is a process, right? You just don't jump to company pages, right? You start with LinkedIn and like, what's the real issue here? What do I hear over and over again? What's this problem? And then you kind of go deeper, right?
You do if you follow your own advice. And I'm pleased to say that what do you know? This is going to be mind-blowing. After I took my own advice and that of many smart marketers out there and actually narrowed in my website, which then led to the branding on my company page, the branding on my personal profile, the content that I'm putting out, these podcast episodes. What do you know? Guess who they're talking to now? My ideal audience. Guess who's been booking more high quality calls with me? This stuff is amazing.
It's crazy. It's bananas. And you just pointed out an excellent point, where it's that a lot of companies, especially B2B organizations, because they're so broad, they attract people who aren't their ideal customer profile all the time. And they waste cycles with people who are never going to buy from them or not the right person to buy from them, right?
Which probably leads us into the next question that I have. And it's one that, because I came from 20 years of B2B sales, I have never sat internally in a B2B marketing team. So when people start talking MQLs and all these other bits of jargon, I have to tell you, my eyes glaze over a little, but I know that that's a big deal. But is the problem that marketing's kind of been reduced to just focusing on MQLs?
My gosh, Michelle, we could be here for like 6 hours on this topic. Yes, it is a major problem. It's one of the biggest pet peeves that I have about kind of B2B marketing currently, is that you're reduced to these analytics in a way of the only way to prove your value is through leads, MQLs, and then ultimately how that drives pipeline, which then ignores all of the myriad of things that go into marketing. We just talked about niching down your audience. We just talked about messaging. Branding's in there. Market positioning is in there. There's so many different things in these volatile markets that are changing. Just look around you. It's nuts, right? All of those things play a factor, and it gets reduced down to an MQL, which means what exactly in an organization? What's qualified, right? That definition gets changed day to day within an organization, let alone across many organizations, right? It's kind of nuts.
It to me feels like, and again, I'm not coming from experience, and if anyone is listening or watching this over on YouTube, drop it in the comments and let me know. Like, what is the challenge that you have within your business when it comes to MQLs? Are you sitting here nodding your head going, yes, this is the problem? Because as you've just said, the consequences, you've jumped over so many of the first, and I would say even more important, foundational steps to get to the end point and adjusting based on that. And I'm thinking then, is the consequence to this we forget about things like brand and then just become in a competition with our competitors to see who gets the most form fills? Like, what happens if we don't get this right and focus just on MQLs?
Yeah, there's so many issues that are a result of this sort of overly focusing on MQL. One of them is that, again, we've now reduced marketing's function to leads, which then reduces our function to only promotion, right? Normally we're 4Ps, right? Product placement, price, promotion, and now we're just the promotion. So all of those other three things are now functions of other departments. Other people take care of those things and then dictate them to marketing. And you see the results of those two as well. It's like a simple one is price, like marketing's supposed to be responsible for price. Now that's sort of like finance or maybe the engineer product teams, the executive teams take care of that. And in a lot of B2B organizations that I've worked in, you have 8,000 SKUs because of it. Like, you discount this thing and now you got this SKU and we're coming up with this because we haven't done the market research to understand what the proper price of this product should be, right? Just one example. So the other problem with it is in a B2B setting, we know that's a buying committee. So again, what's a lead? We know that the buying cycle is longer because the price point is higher. So it's like, are we saying that somebody is qualified because they clicked on 4 emails and downloaded a white paper? They're now going to buy $500,000 of software? That's what we're saying, right? Like, the logic breaks down very quickly when you start to sort of poke at it. So even in the best case scenario, how is this really gonna work and be able to prove that you are doing your job? In any way you look at it, it's kind of not. So you screwed yourself. And to your larger point, we now have an entire generation of marketers who assume that the job of marketing is to create content and get leads. And they don't understand the 4Ps. They don't understand branding. They don't understand market analysis and positioning. All that stuff is gone, right? So the C-level goes, I need a strategy. And you just come up with a content plan and some tactics. That's not a strategy.
Yeah, I see it all the time. Like when I'm doing page audits and I'm looking, going, every single post is some kind of lead gen style of post, which is go to our events, sign up for our form. We want something from you so we can put you in our funnel, is essentially what I would, summarize them as. And people are so aware of that now. And it's not that I don't want to hear from marketers when I'm ready and it's the right type of thing and it's valuable. I'm absolutely ready for it. But the content that I see is literally someone else in the business wants you to go and do a post about this. We've got a trade show coming up. So make sure you tell everyone we're at stand J22 in hall this and we'll be there for 3 days. And it's like, who cares? Like, your whole industry is posting exactly the same thing. And this is where I think when we're being driven by the wrong things and by people outside of our departments, then everything falls over. The LinkedIn content, but as you say, those marketing fundamentals, they go out the window. And then we say, LinkedIn's broken, because we're not achieving our goals. And so this is why I really wanted to have this conversation with you today, is to say, look, we got to get back to what we know works. Those 4 Ps, I don't know how long they've been around for, but long enough to be proven, right?
Right. And just to jump back to our first conversation, right? This is back to If you serve the customer, a lot of these issues go away. The legion is serving the stakeholders. If you understand the customer, which we don't, right? We really don't. We don't understand what they really value. We don't understand how to build relationships with them. We don't understand consumer psychology. None of that stuff is done. If you understood all of those things, then you would know how to bring them along. We don't. Like you said, how do I get them in my funnel as quickly as I possibly can to throw them down this magic lead scoring thing that's going to make them an MQL tomorrow?
I need to tell you that my next question, listeners, I am literally pulling the pin on the grenade and I am about to toss it and know that this is going to cause a mini blow up because there's something else that I watched a whole video that you had. It's in your featured section. I watched the whole thing on YouTube. Let's talk about marketing attribution and its role in this craziness. Now, it is not something that I've ever been responsible for in the business. Again, this is why I've got you here with your expertise. But is marketing attribution the savior for all of these problems, or is it sending us further down the wrong track?
Let me be very clear. I think this is Moni's personal opinion. Marketing attribution is a complete and utter scam. Okay, it's a waste of time. It's a scam. It will never work. Don't do it. Okay, that is my humble personal opinion. I know it's a literal billion-dollar industry, so it's gonna like upset some people to say that, but I think it's a complete and utter scam and a waste of time. There is no point to doing marketing attribution. And just to be clear, for like maybe people who don't know who are listening to this, marketing attribution is the concept of attributing a kind of result, most likely pipeline revenue, to marketing activities, because we know conceptually that there isn't one thing that is driving people, it's multiple things across. So the idea of attribution is you can give credit to multiple marketing tactics and activities to say how they are contributing to bottom line pipeline revenue. No, you can't.
Look, I watched your presentation in this video, as I said, and the piece that got to me probably most was the fact that for all this digital tracking, it doesn't have any real ability to track anything that happens between two real humans, face to face, or non-digital ways. And as you said earlier, word of mouth is so strong and should be one of our big focuses. And yet a lot of these tools I'm thinking aren't capturing this type of precious data. I think this is the most critical data that we could gather, but it's missing in action when it comes to the tools. And I just wonder what you have to say about this, that you can share with our listeners.
Yes, this is a theme. Again, fundamentals, right? Because these tools can't track offline activity very well, i.e., word of mouth and conversations, or even just like networking engagements and stuff like that, it overemphasizes the digital tactics and underemphasizes the offline ones, where the offline ones have way more impact than the digital ones. So we do a bunch of digital stuff in order to attribute, right, some revenue when actually they are not the most valuable things that are important from a marketing standpoint. So you end up spinning your wheels. Even if everything kind of goes right, you're still making assumptions about why someone is engaging with you to begin with. You assume someone's downloading your white paper or attending your webinar because they have intentions of buying from you. Says who? Where did you get that from? Like, you just made that up. You just assume they're ready for your sales cycle. How? So it's an assumption-based model to begin with, because it assumes that every task that you're tracking has some impact on revenue. It doesn't. Right?
Ouch.
So you're setting yourself up to fail to begin with.
Oh dear. Look, and I don't think anyone does this intentionally because, with all of the tools that are out there, they're pretty slick at their marketing in general. And I think, to be fair to marketers, a lot of them feel like right now that they have to justify their existence with the large language models, AI coming for them. Everybody expects them to be experts at everything. Are you doing your job when it's really difficult to put a number on things like brands,
Right.
and so, this is, I can see why people are drawn to it, And I can see
Yeah.
the advantages, but as you said, I also see how this is taking people down the wrong path as far away as
Yes.
possible from these marketing fundamentals that I know in their heart they know are the right thing to be focused on, but
Yeah.
trying to get that conversation across the line with other colleagues, I think is maybe where some of this tricky stuff comes from. What would you say to
Correct.
somebody that's struggling and listening to this and going, I absolutely agree with what Moni has to say. I know that she's right, but I can't have that conversation in my business because people aren't listening. I'm sure you've come up against it before.
It's the number one response that I get, right? It's like, I agree with you, you're right. I don't know how to have this conversation with my boss, C-level, whoever, right? It's classic. And I experienced that too. Like, you're not alone. Like, I was in corporate for 15 years trying to have these conversations and getting stiff-armed in the face. And so I totally understand it. I think the thing that we have to do first is empathize, right? One of the things that I had to do was be like, if I'm going to put myself in C-level shoes, that pressure is coming from somewhere, right? The board or the private equity or whoever wants their money. Like, they gave this company a lot of money and they want it back. So that pressure is coming from that, right? So that's one. Number two is communication. What I had to understand is they don't fundamentally understand marketing. So the only way they can communicate the fact that I need to know what you're doing so I can then communicate that back is through money. That's the only way they have to communicate that with. They're looking for validation. They're looking for, if I give you money, how do I know that you're not wasting it? Okay, that's what they want to know. You can do that through validation. It's your job, marketer, to move the perspective. Okay, it's right. This perspective right now is all on analytics and pipeline revenue. What they really just want is assurance and validation. If you kind of work through what I said, of like getting some feedback from your prospects, not your customer, your prospects, the people you're going after, of this is the right issue, this is the problem, this is psychological, emotional, right, response that they are looking for, and you can feed that back into your marketing. It gives some assurance that, like, okay, we now understand what we have to do. Here's the campaign that we're going to run. This is what we're going to be expecting from it. If it doesn't work, we have the problem. We just need to tweak these sorts of things and then move forward. Then we can crawl, walk, run to getting you to the actual revenue. And guess what? You'll be focusing on your audience, your actual customers, prospects, getting real information from them. And that's going to help you be successful at marketing ultimately.
And that's all I want for our listeners of this podcast, is for them to be successful at marketing and generate the results that the business is looking at. So I appreciate you expanding on that. There's one last thing that I want to talk about, which I know you're also passionate about this. Sometimes out there in B2B land, it could be the B2B Institute, it could be the Edelman Research Institute. There's all kinds of places that information comes from. But sometimes there's some B2B stats that get thrown out there that become gospel, and we run with them. And one of those ones is that 70% of the buyer's journey is done before they reach out. That we all want to be self-serving. We don't want to talk to people. And I think that sent marketing down a path as well that maybe isn't really beneficial. Can you talk through your views on this? Because I really enjoyed actually making myself stop and think, how is this driving my behaviors just as much as what I'm guiding my clients? Are we going down the wrong path if we just take this as gospel?
Yeah, I think it's probably the most widely misinterpreted stat in all of B2B marketing, because you're right. What people hear with that stat is that 70% of the buyer's journey is already done before they reach out to a salesperson, is that I need to create more content so they can research on their own. What that stat really means is, I don't want to be sold to, so I'm going to avoid you as much as possible until I'm ready to actually buy something, because everybody knows as soon as I fill out this form, I'm going to get 8,000 emails and I'm going to get hammered with a bunch of sales calls, right? It's like, and I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not ready for that level of pressure. So I'm just going to wait. They would love to talk to a salesperson, right? I need information. I want to know what the price of this thing is, and I want to know the features. I want to know how it compares to this other thing. I'd love to talk to somebody about that. But as soon as I do, I know I'm opening the floodgates to get hammered and pressured because salesperson got to make quota and they're going to be on my neck for the next however long, right? So the understanding is they're not trying to self-educate, okay? They're trying to avoid being sold to and pressured. And that's the interpretation of the stat.
Yeah, it's a little challenging in my mind. Again, coming from the sales side of things, I did see in a world where you have access to so much information that people had done a lot of the research before they came to me. That was just a given. And we were talking more about logistics, like you said, like it could be pricing, when's it available, should I take this model or that model? And, I worked in an industry, the beauty industry and manufacturing, and our sales cycles were probably 18 months to 24 months in general. So a couple of years. So of course people were doing their research along the way just in case, or getting ready for when they may actually need it, or they may never have reached out. I wouldn't have known. But it was just something that I thought, we always seem to default to more content as being the answer. And when we do more of the wrong things, I remember when I was younger, and Lil's going to laugh at me because I refer back to my childhood athletics days. It was my my glory days. And I remember training with my mom, who was teaching me, and training me in the backyard. And, we were talking about how practice makes perfect. And she pulled me up and she said, no, perfect practice makes perfect. If you keep doing more of the wrong things over and over and over again, you don't actually get any better. You don't get closer to your goals. You don't break those records that you're looking to do. And so I find now that we've got so many tools that we can use to create content at volume. Like you got no one's business. It's never been easier to create more content. But if it's not the right content, it is literally useless. And I would say even sending you backwards, which in today's world, we don't need any help going backwards. There's enough life pressures, world pressures, industry pressures that we just don't need that. And I think that's where I've been taking a second look at this. The answer, customer research, serving our customers, those marketing fundamentals. Is there anything as we wrap the episode up today, if I gave you one last thing, one last chance to share something that you're passionate about, what would you leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think I would love to give an example of like what it really means to sort of understand your customer. Because I feel like people will be like, well, what do you mean? I totally understand. I get it. And you don't really understand how surface you are with it. So I spend a lot of my corporate time in cybersecurity. It's one of the toughest industries to market in because they're tough, right?
Yeah.
They know all the games, they're very skeptical. It's tough. One of the things about cybersecurity is like it's very technical. All the marketing is super, super technical around like, Internet of Things and network security and all these high level terms and stuff like that. What people miss about that audience is that the psychology of it is 99% of the things right and 1% wrong. And that's my job. Like I screwed up, it's over. Like, what's it like that's your day? Do you know what I mean? It's like, nobody in this organization really values what I do, but if something goes wrong, they're the ones that looking at me. No one looks at me when everything is right. They only look at me when something goes wrong, right? That kind of thing. Like marketing to that with that kind of understanding will change the language in which you use the messaging to then talk to that audience, but you don't see it. Because we hang on the surface of all the technical stuff. And here's the technical problem and not the issue with the actual individual. What I mean is go back to human, right? Who is this person? They're a 3D person, right? They have feelings, they have emotions, they have thoughts, they have motivations. What is their day-to-day like? What is those pressures like? What is the environment that they sit in? And come from it from that point of view. That will improve your marketing tenfold, I promise you, versus just, they need a security. So there's a phishing problem, and now we need network security, right? Which is what everybody says and does. So that's just an example of like, what do I mean by really understand the person? Because that's going to inform your marketing and take you to levels that you're going to dominate if you do that.
Yeah, lead with empathy. Actually put yourself in their shoes and understand what is a day in the life of that person on the other side that you are trying to, influence their buying decisions at some point, or someone within their business. And I think that is the thing, again, that you and I are just so aligned with, that we keep skipping over the important parts, which is the people that we're there to serve. And this plays out in LinkedIn content when we're talking about marketing fundamentals. This shows up in the types of content that you're putting out there and the wording you use and who it's directed at. And it could even be the graphics that you choose. There are so many different ways that this is playing out, not just on your website, not just in your email campaigns, but also on LinkedIn as well. So Monique, thank you so much for everything you've shared today. I appreciate getting the insight from someone that's worked on the other side. It's like a look for me into that world that I can't get because I've never been there. So I appreciate you sharing all your experience with the listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I'm always down for a lively conversation. So thanks for having me on the show.
We might have to come back and have those other 6 hours of conversations in another episode, but thank you so much. And listeners, I will be putting all the details on how you can connect with Moni. I absolutely highly encourage everyone to go and check out the presentation she did on marketing attribution, because I think it's going to have you really questioning some of the things that you may have thought were important, but maybe not as important as you once thought. So until next week, listeners, cheers.